on the shore. Going to the bank now, I have to wire money over for more aluminum. So if you're in the South Jersey area or close to that, if you're looking for good pricing on bulk aluminum, so if you need like 90 plus panels at a shot, hit me up. Anyway, so I was watching a video, and I'm not really into the whole, rah rah self motivation shit anymore. Like it's just not. Like back in the day, like when I needed the motivation, of course I'd watch that. Gary Vee was big, and like there was just a bunch of other people that basically said like just put in the friggin' work, right? And so anyway, I just so happened I haven't walked for a little while because my ankle's still fucked up because I've talked about it like I sprained it. Ooh, that really nice. Um, and so anyway, I was on. So I ended up walking my daughter, which was a dumb choice. And then so anyway, I walked for like half hour, and then one of the videos that I listened to while I was walking was from Ed Mylett. So if you don't know who Ed Mylett is, I would follow him as well. He's more of like the motivational stuff. Super successful, but like he's like same as everyone else. Like there's a lot of his backstory that kind of shaped how he was today. And like one of the things, so there's two things I kind of want to talk about. Like number one is like the title of the video suggests or talks about is like you're one hire away from like a radically different business, right? So the business that you're currently in, if it's struggling for whatever reason, if you are working way more hours than you need to and everything else, like you're literally, like it sounds crazy, but you're like one employee away from like a radically different business, right? So again, I've talked about it like so many times at this point, you're probably tired of hearing it, but I'm going to keep on saying it anyway, is like our biggest problem has been that our sales suck, right? And so I talked about before, we brought in, like, we've always had people that didn't really know what they're doing. We train them how to do fence, train them how to do sales, and like they have like mediocre results. Not from a lack of trying, but it's like they just haven't put in the reps. It's like me thinking like we're gonna bring in this person and we're gonna have them work out for the next 6 months, and like they're gonna be ready for like a bodybuilding competition. It's just not gonna happen. We need to find a person that's been working out for 10 years in order to get them ready for the bodybuilding competition, right? But up until then, I had no idea. But again, like after we hired Phil, like I keep on looking at the numbers, and they're crazy. Like they're absolutely crazy when you like look at them. Like the two compared to each other. The one had at this point 6 months of training and fence experience and everything else, and like for the consultations, again, like they're at like 10 to 12%. Whereas him, the first friggin' month, like because the consultations kept on coming in, it was at 29%. 29, like it's huge, right? But I wouldn't have known that, and like what would have happened is without him I would have just kept on trying to hire the same person, right? The same person as far as didn't really know what they're doing. Like, hey, your friend's family, great, let's train you, like we like you as a person. And like it's good to like your employees, like that's not a problem. But if your whole hiring decision is based upon liking this person, well, your business is probably going to be like mine, and basically means that it may be somewhat successful, like on paper. Like there's people that now ask to like if I can work one on one with them, which is cool. Um, and but the potential of the business, like I haven't even came close to hitting that potential. Like it's not even close. And like with a literally one person change, I could like double the sales, like easily. And I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to get it in your head that you don't, just because you've been doing the shit the way you've been doing it does not mean you have to continue doing it this way. The other thing that I've thought about recently is, and maybe me like bouncing back and forth, and I have to kind of get like reality checked quite a bit so I don't get kind of like veer off course, is like more and more I'm thinking that I'm playing the fence game like all the other fence guys, right? But I'm not a fence guy. Like I consider myself more of an internet marketer that just so happens to have a fence company at this point, right? And so a few things come to mind with that. Like when I keep on shifting my mindset, I'm telling myself that, right? That like when I'm telling myself I'm not a fence guy, like why am I playing the fence game? Like you should be playing the internet marketing game, right? There's way more ways to make money in this game, even in the game that you're playing. I don't care what business you're in. There's more ways to make money in the games that we're playing than we're even aware about, right? So that's pretty cool. One, it sucks that we haven't figured it out yet, but two, it's pretty cool that like the potential's there. We just have to find it, right? So how do we find it? Or I guess I should say, how am I going to find it? Well, one, I already thought of a way, and I talked about it in another video. But the other thing is like there's these YouTube channels where they talk about like all these startup hustles and everything else, where they talk about like these random businesses that people are doing in order to make like a decent amount of money that you would just never think of, right? And so what I'm probably going to start doing is listening to them because it's like it's not necessarily doing exactly what they're doing, but it's looking at the business that they're in and the way they're able to make money within that business. Maybe there's some ways that we can apply that what they're doing to what we're doing. So that's what I'll probably end up doing. The other thing I want to talk about is happiness, right? So I was watching, so we're watching like America's Got Talent, and like they were just doing so they were just doing like the 15 greatest moments and whatever else. And like one of them is Nightbird. I forget her name, but she had just like she got the golden buzzer, but then she wasn't able to go to the next level because of like she was battling cancer. But like she was super like chill and happy, and like they were asking about the condition and everything else, and they're like, well, we found the last I checked, I have cancer like in my lungs and here and there, and but she was still happy, and like so she sung the song, and like she got the golden buzzer and all that kind of stuff, and then I forget how like why it came up, but she basically said, you know, and I guess it was more of like, with everything going on, like, how can you be a positive person? I don't know if they asked that, but that's like kind of like what I remember. And like, she's like, you don't have to wait for life to stop being difficult in order to choose to be happy. Like, that's so profound, right? Because I think as humans, like, I'm thinking more because of the evolution and everything else. Like, what are these people doing? More through the evolution and everything else, is that we are constantly scanning our surroundings for like potential issues, right? You know, because back in the day, like we had things that were going to eat us, right? So we had to pay attention to that. Like if you look at all the creatures outside in life, like they're not looking to be happy. Like they're looking to see where their next food, like where their next meal is. They're looking to see where the predators are. Like that's what they're doing, and I feel like they're honestly happier than us, right? Because we don't have time, or they don't have time to figure out like what is the meaning of life. Their meaning of life is literally to eat and produce and not die. Like that's it, right? So I thought that was awesome. And then the last thing I did want to talk about that I really don't remember at this point because I got sidetracked as I normally do. I don't know. I don't remember. This happens all the time. I don't know. Whatever. So anyway, I'm almost at the bank. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Trying to think. Oh, got it. So the last thing, part of the whole Ed Mylett conversation, and it's weird how like I go from like I'm freaking like hopscotching through life. Like that's what it feels like. I'm like on like whatever. So the one thing, and I keep on um so the one thing you talked about is like I think it was the title of the thing was like you're too casual, right? And like it talked about like you know where basically you say you like you talk about a big game. Like for myself, it's like I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to do this. I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna be rich. I'm gonna live where I want. I'm gonna live life on my own terms and everything else. But at the end of the day, like what am I doing to accomplish that, right? And so I have to look back to like 5 and 6 years ago when I first started the business, when I was working, I was probably working like 60 hours a week at that point at a job that I hated. So there was that. And then, like, I think I've talked about this story before, but at its worst, at its absolute worst, this is what my day consisted of. And then when you hear that, then I have to ask myself, like, why am I not putting in anywhere near the effort now than I was back then? And the reason is because I got like comfortable, right? And like, and it's all different areas of my life. I'm just becoming too comfortable. Honestly, I smoke weed. Like, I pretty much smoke it every day. But not during the day. It's pretty much at night, like after either right before or right around like when my son's going to bed. My daughter's already in bed, and yeah, I do that. Watch TV, eat too much, like, but it's like every day, right? So it's more of like just a habit, right? And same thing, like I had a lot of issues with my like I was having a lot of health issues a few months ago, to the point where like my legs felt heavy, my joints hurt, everything hurt, and like a lot of signs were pointing towards like an autoimmune disorder. So what I did is I normally eat pretty good, like, to begin with. Like, I eat probably better than like 90% out there, but like it was starting to like eat this random shit. And like what was happening is that like I was in a lot of pain. Like, it hurt to walk and everything else. Like, I measured, like I would like when I go walk my daughter for a nap, which it would be like I'm walking like 4 and 5 miles. But there has been times where like I couldn't even walk more than a mile just because my knees and everything else were in so much pain. And so anyway, completely changed my diet, and I went from like 180 to like 170, right? And it was pretty quick. I think when I put my head to it, like, I can drop weight pretty quickly. So anyway, I did that, and like I've been down the shore, so it's like we eat the ice cream and the borgata, like, which is the at the casino, like they have a really good buffet, and so we were doing like that kind of shit, which is fine, but not on a consistent daily basis. And so anyway, I went home, I got weighed, and like I gained like 5 pounds, like having these issues again and everything else. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I have to stop being this person, because it doesn't, like, and they talk about it all the time, and we know that it's not so much the goals we need to set, it's really the habits that we need to set. Like, what are, like, if my goal is to do for the wholesale business, right? If my goal is to build up my wholesale business, what are the things I need to do? And a lot of times we look at all the crazy things we need to do and everything else, but like at the end of the day, I literally just need to reach out to several companies each day. Like, that's literally all it comes down to. Now, on the flip side, like, I'm really not doing that for two reasons. One, because I'm lazy. Two, and I shouldn't say I'm lazy. I'm just choosing to not do it. Just because you are what you tell yourself. And then the other reason is because I am down the shore. Like, we really don't want to grow the wholesale business too much, just because like I'm not there, right? So that's what we're doing. So I'm waiting on that. But anyway, this whole at my it talks like going back. So 2016 was the worst year probably of my life. It consisted of working at a job that I hated more than life, because, and I look back and I'm like, why was it so bad? And I realized I had to be a person that I just wasn't, right? I had to be this manager that was able to focus on like 20 different people at a time. And it was through McDonald's, so it was high paced and everything else. It was just a mess, right? So it's just not for me. Other people would love it, okay? Actually, when I go to the bank, not the one down here because I'm at the shore, but when I go home, the manager, or like my old manager for McDonald's, is actually the manager at the bank, and she's like, sometimes I miss it. And I'm like looking at her, I'm like, you're nuts, man. But anyway, so I was working 60 hours a week at a job I absolutely hated. Like, hated's not even a word. Like, I hated life. It was bad. So I was off on Tuesdays and Sundays. So what would happen is Sunday, and the only thing that made work the following week bearable is that knowing that like I was off on Sunday and I had to work Monday and then I was off Tuesday, right? So anyway, by Saturday afternoon, like after 11, 12 o'clock, like I was crazy, like crazy, crazy, because I was thinking about going, or I'm sorry, Sunday around 12. I was crazy because I was thinking about I had to go work on Monday, and I hated the job that much, right? And it was my fault because my uncle owned them. He would ask me. There was a few times he asked me, he's like, "Do you enjoy this job?" And I like just lied to him, like, yeah. And the reason why I lied to him is because like I was making really what I was making, like I couldn't afford to make less. I was making halfway decent money, and like I couldn't really go anywhere else. Just couldn't. So there was that. But anyway, I was working 60 hours a week on that. So the way it worked is I would leave the house on Monday. I mean, not Monday. So I would leave the house at 7 o'clock in the morning. At that time, my son was like, I think like 3 years old, something like that. So I would take him. I would go pick up his grandmother, which was my father's mother, right? At the time, or my father-in-law's mother. So at the time, my father-in-law was battling cancer. He was in the hospital. So then I would pick them up. I'd pick her up. I would go drop my son off at school. Then I would go to the hospital. And I explained this before, but I'm just trying to give you some context about this. So I would do that. I would drive into Philly. I'm in South Jersey, so then I would drive into Philly to drop her off, and then I would go to work. If I wasn't working that day, I would go do fences. Okay. So basically, I worked from like 8 to 5 doing McDonald's, and then from there, after McDonald's, then I would go out and do quotes or install fences or whatever else till like it was like probably 9 o'clock, 8, 9 o'clock, depending on like when it got dark. So that was during the summertime, so like 9 o'clock. And then after that, there was several nights a week where I would go back into Philly, go pick her up, and then drop her home and everything else. So basically, I was leaving the house at 7. I was getting home at like 10. Like, and it was consistent. So even on my days off, those Sundays and the Tuesdays, well, instead of doing the work thing, like I was still picking her up, dropping her off, and then go do fences the whole time, right? And same thing, I would be doing it from like I'd leave the house at 7, and I would get home like I'd stop at like 9, go pick her up, and all that kind of shit. So I forget how many times I would pick her up at night, but it was probably like 3 nights a week. And then the other, so on my short days where I didn't have to go pick her up, then it was like I still was working till like 9 o'clock, so I get home at like 9:30, something like that. Or I probably work a little bit longer. There's plenty of nights where I'm using the freaking headlights or shop lights and like the tripod lights and all that kind of shit because I was still working when it was freaking dark. So we had that. And then, but I did that. Like, it wasn't like here and there. It wasn't like, oh my God, it was like the worst 3 weeks. No, it was like fucking a year. Like a year of probably working. I don't even know because it was like, it was so freaking long. Let's see. So 7 to 7, that's 12. And then I was probably out of the house for like 15 hours a day, something like that, right? So that's 105, right? Yeah. Yeah. Probably like over 100 hours a week, like every single week. And it was, and again, like I would have actually preferred the more of just the fencing because it was more physical aspect. Or at least my ass is getting in shape. But the worst part is because of the McDonald's aspect. It was so, I like even my wife just doesn't understand because I held a lot of shit back then. Because now this is like 6 years ago. I didn't really know how to deal with feelings and everything else. And like it just like no one understands how bad it is. Like never. They just don't. If you haven't worked at fast food, and honestly, if you haven't worked at a McDonald's, because if you're at freaking like Taco Bell or you're at Wendy's or some shit like that, you don't do the volume that McDonald's does. Like you just don't, right? And every fucking hour, it's like let's hit 90 cars and blah blah blah, and it's like it's not just for that 1 hour and then like you have a reprieve. No, it's like you fucking do it over and over and over again. And then when it's slow, there's no one fucking working. Like, so then I'm being, and like, so then I'm like running for drive through. I'm making fries. I'm like backing up counter, and then I'm making sure, and I'm getting change for fucking people and all the other kind of shit. Like, it sucks. So anyway, I dealt with all that. And now I'm here and I'm not continuing to put in the work to do, like, to be where I want to be. And I'm like, what the fuck is your problem? And, like, it's so easy. It's kind of like that, story with the frog and the boiling water and shit like that. Like, I'm literally getting boiled alive right now, and I have no idea because I'm so goddamn comfortable. It's so, like, if